When my daughter-in-law told me, "We married yesterday," I smiled instead of crying. Not because I was happy, but because I had no tears left to shed. It was a cold morning in early spring, the kind where the air smells of damp grass and coffee. I was standing by the kitchen window of my small home in Oregon, holding a cup that had long gone cold. The sunlight fell in weak lines through the curtains, touching the pictures on the wall. My son, Ethan, smiling in his graduation gown. My husband, Mark, holding him as a baby. And me, a younger me, who believed families always stayed close. That morning my phone rang. It was Ethan. He hadn't called in months. "Mom," he said softly, his voice uncertain, "there's something I need to tell you." I smiled, trying to hide how my heart raced. "What is it, honey?" He hesitated. And then a gentle voice, not his, spoke in the background. A woman's voice. She said, "We married yesterday." For a moment I couldn't breathe. My fingers trembled slightly as I held the phone tighter. "Oh," I whispered, forcing a small laugh. That's wonderful news." But inside me something cracked, quietly, like old wood in the cold. I had always dreamed of helping my son plan his wedding, of being there when he put on his suit, straightening his tie, telling him how proud I was. I'd imagined meeting the woman who'd take care of him, sharing stories over tea, maybe teaching her how to make the cinnamon rolls he loved since childhood. Instead, I was told after the fact, in a single sentence, "We married yesterday." The call lasted less than 5 minutes. Ethan said they'd send photos soon, that they were keeping it simple, that they just wanted a small courthouse wedding. And when he hung up, I stood there in silence, my coffee still in my hand. The world outside kept moving. A mail truck drove past, a neighbor's dog barked, a child laughed on the street. But inside, time stopped. I looked again at the photos on the wall, the smiles, the memories, the warmth that used to fill this house. And I wondered when exactly I'd lost my place in his world. That's when I realized, sometimes love doesn't leave loudly. It slips away in quiet phone calls, in forgotten visits, in words that sound kind but cut deep. And that morning, standing alone in my kitchen, I learned what it means to be left behind, gently, politely, and without warning. I wasn't always alone. For most of my life, this house was full of laughter, arguments, burnt dinners, and Saturday mornings when pancakes were the law. I grew up in a small town in northern Oregon. My parents owned a little bakery near the church, and that's where I learned what love looked like, not in words, but in gestures. My father waking up at 4 every morning to start the ovens. My mother humming old country songs while kneading dough. Love to them was about showing up, quietly, every single day. When I met Mark, I was 23. He was a mechanic, tall and gentle, with the kind of smile that made you feel safe. We met at the diner one rainy evening. He came in soaked from head to toe after helping a stranger change a tire on the highway. I offered him a towel and a piece of apple pie. He said later, "That's when I knew I'd marry you. No one shares their pie with a stranger unless it's love." We built our life slowly, a small house, 2 steady jobs, and later, one baby boy, Ethan. Ethan was born on a snowy night. The roads were closed, the power flickered, and yet, I remember feeling the world was bright. The nurse placed him in my arms, and he blinked up at me, tiny and perfect. Mark cried harder than I did. He used to joke that our boy came with the snow, pure and unexpected. Our home grew with him. The living room turned into a fort of blankets. The kitchen smelled of peanut butter sandwiches and laundry detergent. On weekends, Mark and Ethan built wooden birdhouses in the garage, while I baked cookies to keep the builders fed. We didn't have much money, but we had peace. And that was enough. Ethan was a quiet child, thoughtful, always reading or tinkering with something. He loved fixing things, just like his father. When he turned 10, he said, "Mom, I want to build a robot that does the dishes." I told him if he ever managed that, I'd retire early. Years rolled by. Mark's hair grayed early. Mine followed. Ethan went to high school, made friends, brought them home for dinner. They'd laugh in the living room while I served spaghetti and garlic bread. Sometimes he'd lean over, kiss my cheek, and whisper, "You're the best, Mom." Then came the day we drove him to college, University of Washington. I can still see him standing by the dorm entrance, his blue backpack slung over one shoulder, his eyes bright with excitement and fear. Mark hugged him first. I went second, holding him longer than I should have. He pulled back and said, "Mom, I'll call every Sunday, I promise." I smiled, but my throat felt tight. "You better," I said. We watched him walk away. Mark's hand found mine, and for the first time, I felt that ache of letting go, the kind only a mother understands. The house was quieter after that. His room stayed neat, the sheets tucked in perfectly, the shelves dusted. I left it just the way he had it, even after he stopped coming home for every break. Life, I suppose, keeps moving whether we're ready or not. 2 years after Ethan started college, Mark had a heart attack. It was sudden. He was only 56. One morning he kissed my cheek before heading to the shop, and that evening, I got a call from a nurse. I still remember the way her voice softened before she said the words. Losing Mark felt like the ground gave way beneath me. I remember standing at his funeral, holding Ethan's hand so tightly that I left marks on his skin. People kept saying, "He was such a good man," and I nodded because I couldn't speak. That night, Ethan sat beside me on the porch. He didn't say anything, just leaned his head on my shoulder. I stroked his hair and whispered, "We'll be okay, honey, we'll make it." And for a while we did. He called every few days, came home for Christmas, even fixed the garage door one summer without me asking. I tried to keep busy, joined a knitting club, volunteered at the local library, baked for the church sale. But every time I walked past Mark's workbench in the garage, it felt like he might walk in any moment, wiping grease from his hands, saying, "Dinner ready, sweetheart?" Ethan graduated, got a job in Seattle, and slowly the calls became shorter. "Sorry, Mom, busy week. I'll come by next month. Work's just crazy right now." I told myself it was normal, that kids grow up and drift away a little, but part of me always waited for the sound of his car in the driveway, for his voice calling, "Mom, you home?" Then one Thanksgiving, he brought someone with him, a girl named Lily. She was lovely, really. Brown hair, warm smile, polite. She brought pumpkin pie and offered to help set the table. I watched them together, the way he looked at her, the way she rested her hand on his arm, and I thought, she's the one. After dinner, when she was helping me wash dishes, she said, "You raised a good man, Mrs. Cole." I smiled, feeling a little tug in my chest. "Call me Margaret," I told her. And for the first time in a long time, the house felt alive again. They visited twice more that year. Each time, Lily seemed more comfortable, and Ethan seemed more distant. He was loving, yes, but distracted. I figured it was just work, or maybe the newness of building a life with someone. Still, sometimes when he hugged me goodbye, I felt a quiet distance that hadn't been there before. The last time they visited before the wedding, the one I wasn't invited to, I made roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. We sat at the table like we always had. But Lily didn't eat much, and Ethan kept checking his phone. That night, after they left, I washed the dishes slowly, staring at their empty chairs. The wind outside sounded lonely. I remember whispering to myself, "He's grown up now. He doesn't need you like before." If I'd known that was the last time they'd visit before getting married, I might have hugged him longer. I might have told him how proud I was. Or maybe I'd have just said, "Don't forget, love doesn't grow by itself. You have to keep watering it." But life doesn't give you warnings. It just keeps moving, quietly, until one day, you wake up and realize everything has changed. And so, That spring morning when my phone rang and Lily's voice said, "We married yesterday." It wasn't just a piece of news. It was the closing of a chapter I hadn't realized was ending. After the wedding call, the days passed slowly. At first, I told myself not to take it personally. "They're young," I said. "They probably just wanted something simple." Still, every time I walked past the box of old family photos, I thought of the empty chair beside me, the one I'd saved for Lily, though she'd never sat there. I waited for pictures. None came. I waited for a call. Weeks went by. Finally, one Sunday afternoon, Ethan called again. His voice sounded different, hurried, polite, careful, the kind of tone people use when they don't want to stay too long on the phone. "Mom, Lily and I were thinking you could come visit next month," he said. My heart leapt. "Oh, that'd be lovely. I'll bring you some of those oatmeal cookies you used to love." He chuckled. "Sure, Mom, but don't go overboard, okay? Lily's watching her sugar." I smiled faintly. "Of course. Just a few then." When the day finally came, I packed a small bag, baked a batch of cookies anyway, and took the bus to Seattle. I hadn't been there since his graduation. The city felt louder, faster, so many people, all moving with purpose. I clutched my purse and watched the gray clouds roll over the buildings. Ethan met me at the station. He looked older, not just in years, but in the way his eyes carried a tiredness that wasn't there before. Still, when he hugged me, I caught a glimpse of my little boy. "You look good, Mom," he said. "So do you," I replied, though I noticed the faint dark circles under his eyes. Lily greeted me at their apartment. She wore a soft cream sweater, her hair neatly tied back. She smiled, polite and distant. "Hi, Mrs. Cole, it's nice to see you." "It's Margaret," I said warmly. "Your family now." She smiled again, but her eyes flicked toward Ethan, as if to ask what to do next. Their apartment was small but neat, modern furniture, a faint scent of vanilla candles. I handed her the cookies, wrapped carefully in foil. "Oh," she said softly. "That's sweet. I don't really eat cookies, but thank you." I nodded, setting them on the counter. "Ethan might like them." He smiled awkwardly. "Yeah, sure, Mom, thanks." Dinner that night was polite. We talked about work, weather, and the traffic. Every time I tried to ask about their plans, holidays, family visits, Lily would change the topic. She wasn't rude, just distant. I told myself she was shy. After dinner, I offered to help wash the dishes. Lily said, "Oh no, that's okay. We have our system." So I sat on the couch, watching them move around the kitchen like a pair of synchronized dancers. I suddenly felt like a guest in my own family. Later, as Ethan drove me to my hotel, I said quietly, "She seems nice." He nodded, eyes on the road. "Yeah, she's great. Just private, you know?" "I understand," I said. "It takes time." He smiled faintly, but there was relief in his face, as if I'd passed a test I hadn't known I was taking. A month later, I mailed them a card. Just a small note. "Thinking of you both. Love, Mom." No reply. When Christmas came, I asked if they'd visit. Ethan said, "We're staying here this year, Mom. Lily's parents are visiting." "Oh, of course," I said softly. "Next year, then." That next year came and went, and they didn't. I filled my days with small things, baking, tending to my garden, helping at the library. But no matter how busy I tried to be, the evenings felt empty. I'd make 2 cups of tea out of habit, then pour one down the sink. Sometimes I'd take out old photo albums, pictures of Ethan with chocolate on his face, of Mark teaching him how to fish, of birthdays where laughter filled the whole house, and I'd whisper to the photos, "You'd be proud of him, Mark. You really would." But in my heart, I wondered if my son still needed me at all. One day, Ethan called again. His tone was bright, too bright. "Mom, we're expecting," he said. For a moment, my heart stopped. Expecting a baby? He laughed. Yeah, you're going to be a grandmother. Tears welled up before I could stop them. Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful news. Lily's voice came faintly through the line. Tell her we'll send pictures. I smiled through the ache. Please do, and tell her congratulations. When the baby was born, a little girl named Ella, I sent a gift basket with soft blankets, a hand-knit sweater, and a small card that said, Welcome to the world, little one. Love, Grandma. Weeks passed. No reply. Finally, Ethan sent a text. Thanks, Mom. Lily says the blanket's beautiful. Just that. Nothing more. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I whispered, At least she liked it? A few months later, I decided to visit. I called first. I didn't want to surprise them. Mom, it's not a great time, Ethan said. The baby's been fussy. Lily's tired. I can help, I offered. I raised you, didn't I? He chuckled nervously. Yeah, but Lily's parents are staying over already. Maybe another time, okay? Of course, I said softly. Another time. After that call, I sat on my porch watching the sunset. The air smelled of lilacs, and I could hear children playing down the street. I tried to imagine my granddaughter's laugh, her tiny hands, her first steps, all the things I wasn't there to see. I didn't blame Lily, not really. Maybe she had her own ways of doing things, her own space she needed, but it hurt, in a quiet, unspoken way, like being invited to a movie and asked to watch through the window. Years slipped by. Ella turned 1, then 2. I got photos occasionally, emailed by Ethan, always with short captions, her first tooth, at the park, with Mom. I'd reply every time, writing long messages filled with love, asking little questions about her favorite toy or her first words. Sometimes he replied, most times he didn't. One winter evening I called again. It was snowing outside, big, slow flakes drifting past the streetlight. Ethan answered, sounding distracted. Hey Mom, can I call you back later? We're putting Ella to bed. Oh, of course, I said. Good night then. Hours passed, no call back, so I made myself a cup of tea, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and whispered, Good night, baby girl, to the empty room. That spring, my health started giving me trouble. Just small things at first, shortness of breath, dizziness. The doctor said it was mild heart arrhythmia. Nothing serious, he assured me, but don't overexert yourself. I didn't tell Ethan. He sounded busy enough. Instead, I told my neighbor June, a sweet woman in her 70s who often brought me soup. One afternoon, as we drank tea on the porch, she said gently, You know, Margaret, kids don't mean to drift away. Life just fills up. I nodded. I know, but sometimes I wish he'd just call without me having to ask. June smiled kindly. Then call anyway. Love isn't a balance sheet. Her words stayed with me. So that evening, I called Ethan again. He didn't pick up. 2 days later, I tried once more. This time, Lily answered. Hello? Hi, Lily. It's Margaret. Oh, hi, she said, surprised. Ethan's busy. Everything okay? Yes, I just wanted to check on you and Ella. I miss you all. There was a pause. Then, That's kind. We're fine. Just trying to keep a routine. I smiled faintly, though she couldn't see it. If you ever need help with the little one, I'd love to visit. Another pause. Then she said, softly but firmly, I appreciate that, but we're managing. Maybe when things settle down. Of course, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. Take care, dear. When she hung up, the silence in my house felt heavier than usual. I started dreaming of Mark again, of his voice, his laughter. In those dreams, he always said the same thing. Let them go, sweetheart. They'll come back when they're ready. But the mother in me couldn't. Not yet. One afternoon, while cleaning the attic, I found a box of Ethan's old things. School projects, drawings, his first baseball glove. Among them was a small letter he'd written to me at age 10. Dear Mom, thank you for always taking care of me. When I grow up, I'll buy you a big house by the beach so you never have to be lonely. Love, Ethan. I pressed the letter to my chest and whispered, You already gave me everything, my boy. You just don't remember. It was early autumn when I decided to visit. I didn't tell them in advance this time. I know that sounds wrong, and maybe it was. But I couldn't bear another polite, not a good time. I'd made a small sweater for Ella, pink with white daisies. It had taken me 3 weeks, and I wanted to see her little face light up when she wore it. So I packed a small bag, caught the morning bus to Seattle, and told myself I'd only stay an hour, just to drop off the gift, just to see them. Their street was quiet, lined with maples turning red and gold. I found their building easily, a pale brick complex with potted plants near the entrance. I remember standing at their door, my heart racing like a schoolgirl's. I knocked softly. For a moment, no sound. Then footsteps. The door opened. Lily stood there wearing jeans and a gray sweatshirt. She froze when she saw me. Oh, she said, her voice uncertain. Mrs. Cole? Hi. I smiled, holding up the little sweater. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop this off. For Ella. Her eyes flicked down to the gift, then back to me. That's kind. You should have called first. I didn't want to bother you, I said softly. I won't stay long. She hesitated, then opened the door halfway. Ethan's not home, he's at work. That's all right. I can wait a few minutes. Maybe see Ella? Lily bit her lip. She's napping. We just got her down. I nodded, trying not to let the disappointment show. Of course. I understand. She took the sweater gently from my hands. It's lovely, she said, though her voice sounded tired. You really didn't have to come all the way here, I smiled faintly. Mothers never have to. They just do. She gave a small, polite smile. Well, thank you. I'll let Ethan know you stopped by. And then, before I could say another word, she stepped back and closed the door. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at the closed door. The hallway smelled faintly of detergent and baby powder. Somewhere down the hall, a television murmured. I wanted to knock again, to say something, anything, but instead I turned and walked away. When I reached the bus stop, I sat on the bench and looked at the clouds gathering above. I felt foolish, like a stranger who had shown up at the wrong house. I got home late that evening, just as the sky turned purple. I made myself some tea, sat by the window, and tried to push away the ache. But later that night, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Mom, he said, his tone tense. Did you stop by today? I did, I said quietly. I wanted to drop off a gift for Ella. Mom, he sighed. You can't just show up like that. Lily was really upset. Upset? Why? She said you made her uncomfortable. I felt my throat tighten. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see you. And the baby. He paused, then said softly, She feels like you don't respect her boundaries. Boundaries. That word echoed in my chest like a bell. I'm sorry, I whispered. I only wanted to bring something for my granddaughter. I know, he said. But maybe next time. Just call first, okay? Of course. There was silence. Then he added, Mom, we're trying to build our own rhythm, you know. It's not about you, it's just, we need space. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I understand. When he hung up, I sat in the dark, the tea cold beside me. I thought of the word boundaries again, how strange it sounded coming from my son's mouth. The same boy who once couldn't sleep without holding my hand. Days passed, then weeks. I didn't hear from them again for months. Winter came early that year. I decorated the house alone, just a few lights, a small tree. I mailed them a card with a note, Love always finds its way home. No reply. One snowy evening, my neighbor June came over with soup. She found me sitting by the fire, staring at an old photo of Ethan holding a newborn Ella. She sat beside me and said gently, "You can't pour love into a locked door, sweetheart." I smiled weakly. But what if the key's still somewhere in my pocket? She took my hand. Then one day, maybe they'll knock from the other side. Spring returned again. I was watering the garden one morning when the phone rang. "Mom," Ethan said, "we're moving to Denver." "Oh," I said, setting down the watering can. "That's far." "Yeah, Lily got a new job there and I found one too. It's a great opportunity." "I'm happy for you," I said. "Really?" He hesitated. "We'll visit before we go." "That'd be nice." They didn't. A month later, I got a message. "We're settling in. Ella's adjusting great. Love you." No address, no phone number change, just a message. I didn't reply right away. I couldn't. I just stared at the words until my vision blurred. That night, I sat outside under the porch light, listening to the crickets. I whispered into the dark, "How do you keep loving someone who keeps walking away?" 3 years passed, 3 birthdays missed, 3 Christmases spent sending gifts that might never have been opened. Then one morning I received a letter, not from Ethan, but from Lily. The envelope was neat, her handwriting graceful. I opened it carefully, my hands trembling. It read, "Dear Mrs. Cole, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to thank you for everything you've sent over the years. I also wanted to be honest. I think it's time we give our family some space. Ethan loves you, but your visits and calls have become difficult for him. We're in a new season of life, and sometimes, holding on to the past makes it harder to move forward. Please understand this isn't out of anger. We just need to focus on our own family now. Lily." I read the letter 3 times. Each time, the words felt heavier. When I reached the line, "Your visits and calls have become difficult for him," I had to sit down. For a while, I didn't move. I just stared at the rain sliding down the window, thinking how strange it is, how love can become too much for someone who once needed it to breathe. I didn't call, I didn't write back. I folded the letter neatly, placed it in the box with Ethan's childhood drawings, and whispered, "You'll always have space in my heart, even if I don't have space in yours." Months later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Ethan stood there, older, tired, his eyes red from travel. "Mom," he said quietly. I couldn't speak. I just reached for him, and he hugged me, tight, like he used to. We stood there a long time. When we finally sat down, he said, "Lily's gone." I froze. "Gone?" He looked down. "She left, said she needed time, took Ella to her parents for a while." I didn't know what to say, so I just poured him tea. After a while, he said, "I think I hurt you, Mom. I didn't mean to." Tears stung my eyes. "I never stopped loving you," I whispered. "I know," he said. "I just forgot how much I needed that." He stayed for 3 days. We talked, cooked, and even laughed a little. For the first time in years, the house felt warm again. On his last night, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. He said quietly, "Lily told me once that when we got married, it felt like we married yesterday, like our life together was still new. Maybe that's why she was afraid of anything that felt like the past." I looked at him gently. "We all marry yesterday, Ethan. Every day we wake up and choose the people we love again. Or we don't. That's what makes it hard and beautiful." He smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "You always say things that make me think." "That's what mothers do," I said. The next morning, he hugged me goodbye. "I'll call soon," he promised. And this time, he did. Once a week, then twice. Photos of Ella came again, her smiling in the snow, her first day of school, a drawing she'd made for Grandma Margaret. For a while, it felt like the sun had come back after a long winter. But life, as it always does, kept changing. That summer, I got a letter from Lily. Short, handwritten, fragile. "Dear Margaret, I'm sorry for the distance I created. I didn't understand what family really meant. I was afraid of losing control, afraid of losing Ethan. I know I hurt you. If you're willing, I'd like to make things right. Lily, I cried when I read it. Not because of the apology, but because of the words she used. Family. For the first time, she had said it. When I got Lily's letter, I didn't answer right away. I left it on the table beside my chair, where the sunlight hit it every afternoon. Some days I would pick it up, trace the ink with my thumb, then set it down again. I wanted to be sure my heart was ready, not to hold on, but to open up. 3 weeks later, I wrote back, "Dear Lily, thank you for writing to me. I've never stopped wishing you peace. If you and Ella ever want to visit, my door is open. No expectations, just tea and maybe a slice of pie." Warmly, Margaret, I mailed it the same day, then tried not to hope too much. Hope, I'd learned, can be as heavy as sorrow when you carry it too long. A month later, one Saturday afternoon, a silver SUV pulled into my driveway. I stepped outside, wiping my hands on my apron. When the door opened, a little girl ran toward me, curls bouncing, eyes bright. "Grandma!" My breath caught. She was taller than I remembered from the photos, maybe 5 now. I knelt down, and she threw her arms around my neck. Her skin smelled of sunscreen and vanilla shampoo. Behind her stood Lily, nervous, holding a small plant. "Hi," she said quietly. "I thought you might like a piece, Lily." I smiled, tears in my eyes. "I do." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said softly, "Come in, both of you." We sat in the kitchen, the same one where Ethan once built Lego castles. The air smelled of cinnamon and apple pie. Ella climbed onto a chair, swinging her legs, while Lily watched her, unsure where to begin. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry for how things went before. I didn't understand what it meant to share Ethan. I thought if I let you close, I'd lose something." I shook my head gently. "You didn't take him from me, dear. You just helped him grow into another part of himself." She blinked, eyes glistening. "You're kinder than I deserve." "No," I said. "We were both just scared. That's all." Ella pointed to the photos on the wall. "Is that Daddy?" "Yes," I said, smiling. "That's when he was about your age." She giggled. "He looks funny." Lily laughed too, the first real laugh I'd heard from her, and something inside me eased. We spent the afternoon together. I taught Ella how to roll pie crusts. She ended up with flour on her nose. Lily helped me clean up, and we talked about small things, gardening, books, recipes. When they left, she hugged me tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" I asked. "For giving me another chance." After that day, they began visiting often. Sometimes Ethan came too, sometimes just Lily and Ella. The house started feeling alive again. Laughter in the hall, small shoes by the door, crayons on the table. One Sunday, as we were having lunch on the porch, Ethan said, "You know, Mom, Lily and I still talk about that first year. We were so young. We thought love was just about privacy and protection. We didn't realize it's also about sharing." I smiled. "That's something everyone learns the hard way." Lily nodded, her hand resting on his. "You never gave up on us." "Thank you." I looked at them both. My son, the boy who once promised me a house by the beach, and the woman who had built a home with him instead. I said, "Families don't fall apart because of distance. They fall apart when no one tries to reach across it." Ethan reached for my hand. Then we're still reaching. The seasons rolled gently after that. I grew older, slower, but not lonely anymore. Ella would spend weekends with me. We'd bake cookies, plant flowers, and watch old movies. She'd crawl onto my lap and say, "Tell me a story about Daddy." And I'd tell her about the time he tried to build a robot, or when he burned pancakes trying to surprise me on Mother's Day. She'd giggle every time. Sometimes Lily would join us, sitting quietly, listening. One evening she said, I think Ella's going to remember these days forever. I smiled. So will I. One winter night, Ethan called. Mom, he said, we're thinking of buying a house with a big yard so Ella can run around. That sounds wonderful, I said. He hesitated. There's one more thing. We want you to move in with us. Maybe just the guest cottage out back. It's small, but... I laughed softly. Ethan, I'm fine here. I know, he said, but it'd be nice having you close. For Ella. For us. I sat quietly for a moment, listening to the crackle of the fireplace. Then I said, you know, for years I dreamed of being needed again. And now that I am, I realize love isn't about being needed. It's about being wanted. And you've just given me that gift. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he whispered, we do want you, Mom. I smiled through tears. Then yes. When moving day came, the sun was warm and the air smelled of grass. Ethan carried boxes, Lily arranged furniture, and Ella ran around the yard with a butterfly net. I set my peace lily on the porch and whispered, we've come full circle. That night, as we sat by their fire pit roasting marshmallows, Lily leaned toward me and said, you know, when I told you we married yesterday, I thought it meant we were starting fresh. But now I see, every day is a kind of marriage, to each other, to family, to life. I looked at her, smiling softly. Yesterday never ends, dear. It just grows roots. Months later, Ella's school had a family day. She asked me to come. I wore a soft blue dress, my favorite cardigan, and the pearl earrings Mark had given me. When I arrived, Ella ran to me, waving a crayon drawing. Look, Grandma, it's all of us. The picture was simple, a house, a son, 3 big people, and 1 small one. I pointed to the figure with gray hair. Is that me? She nodded proudly. You live right next to us forever. I smiled, my throat tight. Forever sounds just right. It's funny how life circles back. How what once broke your heart can later become the quiet reason you smile. Some evenings now, I sit on the porch of the little cottage behind Ethan and Lily's house. The garden is full of lavender, roses, and the peace lily she once brought me. Ella plays in the yard, her laughter floating through the open window. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can almost hear Mark's voice in the wind. Soft, steady, the way it used to sound when he'd say, "You did good, Maggie." I think about that morning years ago, when the phone rang, and I heard the words, "We married yesterday." How I felt like I'd lost everything. But now, sitting here, I realize I hadn't lost anything. I had only stepped aside for love to grow in a new direction. It took me a long time to understand that love isn't ownership. It's not the keeping of someone close or being part of every moment. It's being their quiet home, the place they can return to even after the world changes them. Sometimes I still miss the old days, when Ethan was little, when our family dinners were just the 3 of us and laughter filled the kitchen until late. But I also know that every stage of love has its own beauty, the letting go, the waiting, the welcoming back. They're all parts of the same gentle story. A few nights ago, Ethan brought out an old box of photographs. We sat by the fire with Lily and Ella, flipping through them, birthdays, Christmas mornings, Mark holding baby Ethan in his arms. Ella pointed at one picture and said, "Grandma, who took this one?" I smiled. That was me. I took most of them. She thought for a moment, then said, "So you made our memories?" Her words made me pause. Maybe that's what family really is, not the big moments, but the quiet people behind the camera, holding everyone together with invisible threads of love. When I go to bed at night, I often look at the photograph of my son's wedding, the one I wasn't at. It's framed now on my bedside table. Lily gave it to me last Christmas along with a small note. It said, "For the day you weren't there and every day after, you've been with us in love." I cried when I read that, not from sadness, but from peace, because in the end, forgiveness isn't about forgetting what hurt us. It's about remembering it gently, so it no longer stings. I'm not sure how much longer I'll live in this little cottage. Maybe a few more years, maybe longer if I'm lucky. But I know one thing for certain. When I leave this world, I want Ella to remember that her grandmother loved softly, that she didn't fight or blame or close her heart. She just waited until love found its way home again. And I hope, when she grows up, she'll carry that same gentleness with her, through her own heartbreaks, her own joys, her own yesterdays and tomorrows. Because if there's one thing life has taught me, it's this. Love doesn't always arrive on time. Sometimes it comes late, in letters, in small visits, in laughter years after the pain has settled. But it always comes. So when my daughter-in-law said, "We married yesterday," I thought it was the ending of my story. But now I see, it was only the beginning of another kind of love. Yesterday never truly ends. It just teaches us how to love again, today.